Wow.
What is it, Bobby?
I know exactly where Jack Rabbit's palace is. My dad, when I was a little kid, he took me to this place. It's near where our station used to be. It was our make-believe world, where we made up stories. And I was the one that named it Jack Rabbit's Palace.
He saw all this. Whatever this is.
Well, that's my dad.
Welcome to Twin Peaks Rewatch. From Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
On this episode, we are discussing Part 9 of Twin Peaks The Return. That makes us halfway through the season.
That's true. And as always right now, this episode was written by Mark Frost and David Lynch. It was directed by David Lynch, and it first aired on July 9th, 2017.
On this episode, Bad Coop meets with his associates to give out instructions, get some gear, and send a text. Dougie Coop unwittingly surrenders his fingerprints while his boss sticks up for him to the three Fuscos, who head off to apprehend Ike the Spike. The FBI crew inspects Major Briggs' body in Buckhorn and learns of Bill Hastings' encounter with the Major in the Zone. Truman Hawk and Bobby Briggs visit Mrs. Briggs, who hands over a crucial cryptic Cooper clue left by her late husband. We catch up with several members of the Horne family, and we're back to the Roadhouse to close it out.
That's it.
That's what happened.
It's interesting to me that if last week was not the crazy, ridiculous spectacle that it was, parts 7 and 9 back to back would feel outrageously pedestrian as far as just like run-of-the-mill Twin Peaks happening. The fact that we got this episode like spiked in between what have been the two most normal episodes, I think
I mean, this episode
puts them both on the slope of you can feel their adjacency to that, but otherwise they're just like you're just rolling.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean, but this definitely felt to me like, okay, we're back to just what the version of normalcy for this show is.
Yes.
This episode had, I mean, even for a non-episode 8 episode, this episode is really low in terms of, for instance, supernatural things happening or like weird unexplained anything, right?
I think this episode might have the least of that so far, because even 2 episodes ago, we at least had Dougie doing some weird stuff. The arm pops out of the ground and says, tear his arm off. And, in this episode, the most supernatural experience we had was Jerry Horne's talking shoe.
Right. Yes. Which, unclear if that is in fact
right. Is Jerry Horne entering the zone, or is he just like on a bad trip?
Right.
Or both.
A bad trip to the zone.
That was the working title of this episode. That's the German title of this episode.
Yeah, a bad trip to the zone. Yes, very true.
A bad trip to zone. This episode, I think it's probably best served by us just rolling through it and talking about it.
Yeah, going through the various threads. I mean, we're back to there being a bunch of threads.
Yeah.
Obviously, as indicated by that top line summary. We open with Bad Coop, who... The shot of him walking that dusty trail was kind of incredible to me. I mean, it looked like it came from a different show to me almost. It was so... I mean, especially when he was sort of at the beginning of the shot, when he was off in the distance. It was so sort of pastoral and serene.
And then the closer it gets, the more you're like, oh, that's just a dusty, bloodied wreck of a man. Yeah. Yep.
So he meets up with...
he picks up that bandana, for sure.
Oh, that's true. He snags that bandana. Do you think he knew that was there?
I don't know.
I couldn't tell.
I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah. He meets up with Tim Roth, Hutch.
Yep.
He meets up with Hutch and Chantel. Gets the
more
stuff he needs.
More of his minions. He seems to have a lot of just sort of...
Yeah, he's got a whole network. He's like a crime boss, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I guess he effectively must be. I mean, he's got that house.
Yeah, it seems like at this point he is just sort of a crime boss of vaguely white trash criminals.
Yeah, it's strange, but I think that's what's going on.
Yep.
He sends a text.
It's this text that Diane receives later in the episode.
He sends it, though, on an amazing, like, encrusted pink flip phone, which is very good. The text says, "Around the dinner table, the conversation is lively."
Okay.
And then
One of
Diane
those
gets that
Twin Peaks
later.
phrases.
Yeah, definite one of those. Yeah. And then he just drops off an instruction to kill the warden, which Hutch takes with no. Hutch sees no difficulty or problem in that.
Yeah,
it was sort of surprising to me.
Yeah, he just killed that warden. He calls up his boy in Vegas and says, "Did you do it yet?" And the guy says, "Not yet." Presumably, that's in regards to Dougie being killed.
Yeah, it must be. And we haven't seen. I mean, we haven't seen that character in a few episodes. That character's been in the show since the first episode.
He was in episode 2. Yeah, he was in sort of the first part of that opening two-parter. Then we last saw him sending the file with the dot on it to Ike the Spike to kill those two, the woman who was texting the same place as Jeffries, and then also kill Dougie. But Ike the Spike obviously lost his hand, etc. So
yeah.
More on that later this episode.
Mm-hmm. Were there any? I mean,
he makes out with that lady and then leaves.
That's true.
And he says, "Destroy everything."
Yeah.
I don't know. That scene was pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it was essentially just catch up to this is what happens now that this guy isn't dead after all, and that's about it. I think.
When do we next see Bad Coop? This episode, or was that all of him so far?
I don't think there's any additional stuff we see of him. Yeah, it's worth noting that whole thing was really closely intercut with all of the FBI investigation.
Right.
That was going back and forth on a really sort of quick level. But do you want to talk about that, or do you want to talk about Dougie Coop?
Let's get all the Coopers out of the way early on.
Yeah. So Cooper.
That means we can talk about the Fuscos.
That's true. Cooper was sort of sitting around waiting with Janie E. while Bushnell, his boss, is being interviewed by the 3 Fusco detectives.
I feel like his boss's name has changed or something. Whatever.
No, it hasn't.
Okay. Has it always been that?
Bushnell, that's his first name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see. I know him. I know him by his last name, which I've also forgotten.
So Bushnell is sort of giving the rundown on Dougie, and we learn some things about Dougie that sort of enhance our understanding of that weird character.
It confirms things that you believed had to have been true, or some version of them had to be true, like that Dougie suffered a car accident.
Yes.
And he occasionally has episodes. Also,
after Bushnell leaves, we learn that his records exist no further than 1997.
Yeah. So Dougie, is only 20 years old, I guess, or maybe less.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, the cops stipulate maybe it's witness protection, but we as the viewers think maybe it is because that is when he was created by
It seems like Twin Peaks is doing its season 3 thing. I mean, the way that all those things are laid out and the way that we've seen all the other sort of mystery clues laid out, it's safe to assume, in my opinion, that within 2 episodes, the combination of the fingerprints and them saying they're going to run it up to someone in Justice or in the FBI means that the airplane containing Gordon Cole's Blue Rose Brigade is going to end up crossing paths with this stuff in a couple weeks. It seems like.
I think that's probably right.
Whether or not that means that we're going to get Cooper back, irrelevant, but it means that at least all of the information is going to be in the same room for the first time.
Yeah. So in this scene, there were sort of 2 long, lingering shots of people looking at things that I think are worth discussing.
Okay.
And the first was Bushnell and the cops sort of facing each other off for an extended, awkward moment in which Bushnell almost looks like he wants to start boxing with these guys. Is that how it came off to you?
I couldn't tell if it was him being adversarial towards them. Yeah, when I did not know how to interpret that scene, but by the end of it, because of the way that he outlined all the things that had happened to Dougie, where he sort of was like someone tried to kill him and his car blew up, and sort of looking at the law enforcement guys, my ultimate read on this, which may be totally wrong, was that his mind was rolling through, Dougie's been going through a major case of insurance fraud. Someone is maybe out to get Dougie because he's revealing that there's this huge conspiracy. Also, I'm looking at 3 detectives who are maybe about to discover that my company, unbeknownst to me, but is still perpetrating massive insurance fraud. I'm in a really bad situation.
Right, so it's more of the defensive reflex.
Yeah, I thought that he was like, oh, I got to get out of
Yeah,
here.
that's
Because
a good read.
He lists all the things off that happened to Dougie, then sort of just goes, oh, and then just like,
Yeah.
it says, Dougie, take the rest of the day off, and he just goes back to the office. And
Yeah.
The scene still seemed emotionally not 100% aligned with that either. Like, it seemed like there was something else going on, and it's hard to know what that was, or if it was a weird, in the moment decision to play everyone's interiority in a very strange way on screen. But
Right.
that was the best I could make of it, though.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that interpretation a lot. The other one of those, the really big obvious one, because we've had a number of these, is Cooper getting transfixed by the flag in the corner while the strains of the national anthem sort of waft into his brain, I assume.
This is easily, for me at least, the best one of these.
Yeah.
We've gotten a billion of these.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the most potent and most outrageous one, but like...
I really liked the shoes on the statue one, personally.
Oh, that was also really good. Man, that was really good. Yeah. I can't stay mad at Dougie. Just like everyone in Dougie's life, I can't stay mad at Dougie.
Yeah.
I like him looking at the flag, the music coming on, then the woman who's basically dressed as Audrey Horne after she changes her shoes in early season 1. Like the way that he goes from the flag to being distracted by like the black skirt and the red heels,
shoes,
and then she leaves the room. Then he pans back over and sort of focuses
Fixates,
on the electrical outlet. Like, what a complete collection of nonsense on its face, but because of all the stuff that we've seen in the season, like that scene had
imbued with so much meaning.
So much meaning. That was so good.
I mean, the Audrey one is not even referencing this season at all.
Right,
it's going way back.
It's referencing the first season of Twin Peaks. It's referencing sort of like his first days in that town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was really, really good. And just the incredibly cheesy string arrangement.
It was so good.
That was
so good.
Yeah, very, very good.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say? This is much less substantial than what we just talked about, but do you have anything to say or observe about those 3 weird Fusco detectives?
I love them.
Yeah.
They're
They're very Twin Peaksy.
Yeah, they're the version of that style of sort of Twin Peaks slapstick.
Yeah.
Or not even slapstick, but just like weird character acting, just goofiness. It was good.
Yeah.
I like those guys, including the totally pointless insert shot of when they're on their way to go see Ike the Spike, that they walk past the guy's taillight and they're like, yeah, nice. Check it out. And then they keep going. Like, good.
Yeah.
Good guys to be in the middle of this weird mess.
Yep. After the middle cop was just busting up about that taillight.
I know.
That cackling weirdo.
Yeah, it was good.
It's very good. I like it a lot.
They felt like season 2 Twin Peaks in a way, but like a good,
a
healthy presence of it in this case.
Yeah.
If we had an entire episode about just those characters, I would be less into it.
Right, that would be.
If it was cross-cutting between that and like Mike's Honda dealership.
Right. And then we get all 3 of those guys lined up, pistols drawn, at Ike the Spike.
Yep.
I just found that to be a very funny moment, especially with how incredibly pleased with themselves they are when they declare Ike the Spike, you're under arrest for attempted murder.
Yep.
It
was good. That whole scene was good. The actor who played Ike the Spike actually got a scene to like be not just a goofy guy who stomped around. Like he played it really well. Like that whole scene was good and made me actually like believe in that entire collection of people as characters and as a story in a way that has felt really one note before.
Yep. I agree. I like that whole thing.
Before we move on from this too far, at this point, now that Dougie isn't wearing his wacky clothes, now that sort of Janie E has decided that he just should wear the suit because it fits him the best,
looks sharp.
Whenever we hard cut to him just sort of sitting and looking straight ahead, I go, like I actually gasp every time because we don't see Cooper that often, but that shot of him just sort of like stoically looking ahead when you first see him in the police department, I went, oh, geez, Cooper's, and then I went, oh, okay, it's Dougie.
Yeah.
And then the reveal, like I felt like my reaction to seeing and being surprised by Cooper totally
like
held
reaction?
Because then it had the press in on him and it's like, what is he staring at? The American flag. I was like, okay, well, he also is sort of Coopering out right now.
Yeah.
There have been a couple times, like a few episodes back when it cut to him in the elevator in that suit on his way into Lucky 7, and I just went, no, okay, no.
I know.
It's fine.
Yep.
It's fine.
I know exactly. I know exactly what you mean. Do you want to move on to the FBI investigation?
Yeah. which seems like one of the two meatiest threads this week.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Threads are actually starting to be connected really in, fairly rapid succession.
This episode,
and with the actual knowledge of the characters in the show, not just the viewer.
It was funny. I was talking to Dana partway through this episode, and we said, "Oh, this is one of those classic season 3 Twin Peaks episodes where it feels like, maybe nothing happens and it's moving really slow, but at the same time, a ton of information's happening." And then I paused and went, "Oh, never mind. We're only 30 minutes into this," and we thought that we were like almost at the end of the episode. And like, wow, this is a packed episode.
Yep.
Which, as evidenced by these opening scenes on the plane, where they're basically discovering and being the FBI is discovering and being trapped between so many threads at once that they can't even deal with all of it at the same time. Like they hear from Agent Knox, or Lieutenant Knox, and about Major Briggs's body, and decide they're going to make the diversion there. And then when they're on their way being diverted, they hear that Bad Coop is broken out of prison.
Right.
So it's just like inundated with like everything's finally coming home to roost in an aggressive, really aggressive way.
And none of that stuff is new to us until we get to the zone related stuff with Bill Hastings.
Yeah. It's just again sort of satisfying and reassuring to watch all of the things actually fold in.
Did you enjoy Diane's the screen on Diane's phone preventing her, I guess, from using her phone on the plane, which was just a black screen with a word
with
in
the word
red,
blocked. Yeah.
Was that? I mean, this does not matter one bit, but I assume that was supposed to be some kind of like FBI technology locally blocking her phone, because
I figure
Preston was still able to use.
But she has like a big bulky satellite phone.
Yeah.
It felt like it was just some conceit. It felt like a cheesy conceit to just delay Diane getting that text until she's on the ground at the Buckhorn morgue. But yeah, it was a good opportunity to see some good Twin Peaks infographics.
Yeah. So the things that I liked a lot were Diane's just reaction to things when they actually arrive. Her sort of morose demeanor, which I mean is in line with everything we've gotten from her before, but the version of it that I really, really liked was her playing off of Cole outside when she was smoking.
Yeah.
And Cole sort of, I think we're probably meant to assume that Cole has quit smoking, but they used, as he says, they used to smoke together.
Yep.
He takes a drag of her cigarette. And it's just, is another one of, as mentioned, the very, very, very long held scenes.
Yep.
Long shots, but with two people sort of just.
There were 3 people in that scene, though, which
That's
made
true.
it very hard to watch. I feel
scene.
like the actress who plays Agent Preston did not quite know what to do in that scene, and David Lynch wasn't behind the camera to... I don't know. It felt very strange.
Oh, I bought that because I felt it as that character not knowing what to do or how to hold herself or how to look.
All right.
Yeah, that totally worked for me.
All right. I was really frustrated in that scene because I kept trying to watch David Lynch and Laura Dern, but she was just like moving around and the Foley was so aggressive on the other side of the screen that I was like, God, I can't even watch this scene.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that was what was supposed to be going on.
No, that's fair. I was just jumping basically between the 3 of them all the time.
I literally just could not actually fixate on anything because there was just like
bummer. Sorry,
an
Jake.
awkward shuffler. It's fine. It's totally good. Diane's sort of like, I guess like her arc across this episode was really just nice to watch to me because I feel like her whole sort of character conceit through the few scenes we've seen with her is basically to be disaffected and to say fuck you to whoever's near her, but it feels like she's being drawn in kind of despite herself to what's going on. And as
she doesn't even want to go with them on their diversion at all.
Yeah, but she's watching the Bill Hastings stuff, and it seems like the fact that she knows a ton about all of these things, and we just know that she has had historical involvement and proximity to all of this, it seems like her getting a taste of some actual concrete movement for the first time in decades is too much to resist. And she can't
making that connection with Cole.
Yeah.
It's, sort of bringing her back a little bit.
Yeah.
Preston interviews Hastings.
Yeah.
And, is just completely falling apart. It's kind of crazy to me that this is the first any of this zone stuff is being mentioned.
I know.
Given all of like given the predicament he was in before, but whatever.
I wish there had been one drop earlier that he maybe knew more than nothing.
Yeah.
Because the last time we saw and heard Bill Hastings, I think was when his wife was alive. And when she was like, "You're having an affair, your fingerprints were all over it." He said, "I was having a crazy dream."
Right, yeah.
And now he's like, "Well, actually, me and this woman were investigating the lodges and we had talked to Major Briggs and we went to another dimension and I had a website." And like, whoa.
Yeah,
This is a pretty intense drop.
The way I can sort of sell that on his behalf is to say he got so accustomed to thinking of the zone as a dream in his head, because he did say he woke up from it. I mean, even after he's actually talking about
That's totally true. And this was the first time that anyone has come and interrogated him on a level that is just, I accept
credulous.
all the things that you're saying.
Yeah.
We're just going to ask you very direct questions about this experience, literally show you a picture of the guy that you saw and stuff.
Which is kind of incredible. I mean, like, imagine that from Hastings' point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in such a state that he doesn't really
He's just
acknowledge
like,
how crazy it is.
The X-Files are real, is what he thinks.
And gives him a photo
Yeah.
of this guy that he saw in another dimension / a dream.
Yeah.
And he just sort of circles it, dates it. But anyway, did you go to that website?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very good website.
thesearchforthezone.com. Is
Yeah.
it the, or the, yeah.
Yeah, it's thesearchforthezone.com.
Yeah.
It's
really good. It's a very classic late 90s.
It looks like a website he's been updating for 20 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, updating the text only and
Right.
never touched any other piece of it.
Yeah. It's got really good buttons on it that say things like say no to frames and like the campaign against frames and all this crap that people really cared about
Yeah, it looked like
in the early web.
Yeah, when you were really excited about like GeoCities era web development.
Yeah. It said made with Notepad the right way.
Yeah.
Just really stupid and good.
Which kind of makes me sad because it's very clear that the Twin Peaks season production team didn't make it, and someone like on the marketing side must have, because that level of dorky awareness of web stuff just is not present in the aesthetic of the rest of the show.
Yeah, sure.
But it was still really, really, really well done. If you dig too deep into the website, it's clearly just like marketing for the Showtime Twin Peaks soundtrack.
Oh, is it? I didn't realize.
Yeah, like if you there's a like support my page by donating, and if you click that, it takes you to the Twin Peaks soundtrack store. So like whatever.
What is the soundtrack? Is it the licensed?
It's the Roadhouse. It's the entire Roadhouse
because
bands.
There's a video that if you try and look at Hastings' old posts, you get a 404 page, which then redirects.
It's a bunch of
to
video static.
A video, with weird, actually really cool. I thought really cool looking. Sort of light stab effects, and then many of the soundtrack tracks and just sort of running with static over them. I didn't realize the marketing aspect. Actually,
yeah, but it doesn't really matter because the website itself is worth a visit.
Yeah.
It seemed like Matthew Lillard, the actor who plays Bill Hastings, didn't know that this week would be the week when his big monologue in jail showed up, because I looked at his Twitter account and he said, "Oh, a bunch of people are telling me that tonight's the night that I'm on Twin Peaks." And he seemed very proud of that performance. I liked that a lot. I thought
did too,
I've really enjoyed Bill Hastings, and I said in, I guess it was episode 2 or 3, whenever his wife got shot, that I was really disappointed that she was killed so early, because I thought their scene in the jail right before the woodsman shows up for the first time was really good and totally reminded me of like old, like the sort of white collar double crossing stuff from old Twin Peaks, and having that
definitely,
and like that being combined with him being that sort of just crying wreck,
Martell versus Horne, and
and I was happy to see him playing the part of emotionally destroyed man, another Twin Peaks classic.
Yes.
His monologue was actually great, because his huge emotional, crazy talk about his unknowable experience, but then the reveal that he just wanted to go scuba diving.
I know, in Bermuda.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. That was very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have nothing more to say about that other than I appreciated it.
No, I really liked it. Yeah. It's I mean, I feel like I've said this a lot of times, and the show still continues at the pace it continues at, but it does feel like so much information is getting dumped right into the faces of actual characters on the show that there has to be, I mean, things have to be coming to a head, right? Well, we'll see.
There's always another like turn that the story could take every time that it's getting close. Although, yeah, that's true, because now this episode, as far as just things inevitably coming to a head, not only did because they've found Major Briggs's body and they've had a bunch of conversations about that, and they've found Bill Hastings and they've learned about what he's doing. Obviously, also they were given Dougie's wedding ring, which was found inside of Major Briggs. So now the FBI has the name Dougie and Janie E.
And the police have Dougie's fingerprints.
And also his lack of a past, and are running that through witness protection and whatever. So like, it's feeling very similar to like in the first half of the season when Jade put the key in the mailbox, and we're like, what's that? It's like that. We just know that these things are going to eventually flow downstream into some sort of plot convergence.
The thing that could happen, though, like with dropping the key in the mailbox, is we could just go 4 episodes of other things happening before. But anyway, whatever. We should probably talk about Albert a little bit.
Yes.
Across the FBI stuff, because he has been getting some really good moments to play, including his like constant sort of snark,
his Alberting
jokesterism going on. He's been good.
He's being Albert. This felt like some of the best Albert stuff as well, including his little like tete-a-tete with the coroner. Did you have specific things you wanted to say about it, or just bring it up to appreciate its presence?
I just brought it up to appreciate its presence. I mean, it's some characters who were mainstays of the original series have been very much relegated to occasional gags, and I would say Lucy and Andy are an example of that, and we got that again from them in this episode. And for the most part, I mean, there isn't really a huge correlation between how much screen time did they have in the original show versus how much do they have in this show. It's more just what do we need those characters for. And it's just worked out that Albert and Gordon Cole, for that matter, who also his involvement in the original show went up and down.
Yeah, this is
but they're just getting a lot of
exponentially
time.
More of those characters, I think.
Yeah, and it's just I feel like Albert went through an arc in the original run of Twin Peaks in a way that like Cole certainly didn't, because he was just barely a character. He didn't have a sort of character growth arc or anything like that. He was more of just like a fixture. Albert's, despite I think kind of almost being introduced as a one-note character, ended up a character with a surprising number of dimensions.
Yeah.
And so it's cool. I have enjoyed in this season seeing it feels like this season doesn't have Albert changing over the course of the season, but it feels like he contains all of what we learned about Albert from the original run.
He's a character that's we've spent enough time with and has gone through so much and has just had been portrayed through a great performance to the point that Lynch can point the camera at Albert, and in his eyes, you as a viewer can understand what he's going through or what his interiority might be in a way that you cannot for some other characters on the show. And they're leaning into that really hard, and it works basically every time. Like we've had a lot of moments of Albert just sort of witnessing some portion of Cooper's past falling back into place and just seeing him process it and seeing him think about that in terms of his friendship with Cooper, in terms of the mystery and just sort of what it could mean literally for his job, in terms of the mistakes that he's made, and sort of all these other things just read silently on his face in so many scenes, and it's really cool to watch. Yeah, and knowing, that sadly, like so many other actors from the original run of Twin Peaks, Miguel Ferreira has passed away. Yeah. It's nice to get this much from him in this show, which I was absolutely not expecting. Nope. So, just wanted to call that out. You want to turn to Twin Peaks? Yeah. What, if anything, do you make of the fact that frequently on this season, when we get an establishing shot of the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department, it is displayed with these sort of blinding God rays shining through the forest behind it? Anything, or that's just... I don't know. Lynch likes it, and there it is. It's hard to know. Maybe they are the shining force of good in the world. Also, it just looks really pretty. Yeah, no, it looks great. I mean, it feels sort of to me like this is a very obvious interpretation, but, we spend so much time in this season in so many other places and, dealing in these sort of dismal plot threads and so on, that it feels like it's basically saying, Twin Peaks,
pure, wonderful place.
A breath of fresh air.
Yeah, a breath of fresh air.
But then what? I mean, maybe that's the intent, and then we're supposed to be like, let off some steam with Lucy and Andy buying some chairs, and then it's like, I don't want to watch this. I did not want to be watching that scene.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really understand the function of those characters on this season.
It felt like it was supposed to play as some like just lighthearted play to take the air out of, or to
it's sort of their class. It felt like a very, very classic Andy and Lucy moment, right? Of like they're mad at each other, but they love each other really at the end of the day, and they'll both sort of make a sacrifice, tiny sacrifice for each other. But it just didn't. It didn't fell
land.
Flat to me.
Lucy ordering the red chair all the same, like at least it had that beat at the end, but even that felt a little bit weird. Maybe it would feel...
I mean, it felt fine in substance. Like, right, in the actual actions that were taken, it was believable for those characters, I guess.
It was played very, very strangely. Yeah. Maybe we need that Badalamenti brush patter in the background.
That probably would have gone a long way, right? I mean, because the thing, when they're just mad at each other, both because there's no music and, they're older and they're actually married and they've been in a relationship for a long time. And it's entirely feasible to imagine, just because they're human beings, that their relationship has legitimate like fissures in it, right? Not because of them, but just because that's like a thing that happens to people.
Right.
And that's fine. That's a fine thing to depict on this show, certainly. But when it's just that and we have no other context from anything about their lives other than they have the son Wally Brando, who we haven't seen, in many episodes, which whatever. But when it's just that, and that's the only thing we get from them for several episodes,
it's very strange.
Just uncut and tense. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know what to do with it other than to just
turn it into something that we know we're meant to understand as kind of just like a funny quirk of their relationship with that music. I don't know.
Let's cut to this wacky scene that's just gonna sort of lighten the mood for a minute. I don't know. Are their lives falling apart? Like, oh God. Okay. Anyway, next scene.
Yeah.
It was really strange.
Yep. One thing I want to mention about the Lucy and Andy thing. Mm-hmm. This is utterly meaningless, but Lucy has a dual monitor set up and Andy only has one monitor on his computer, and I thought that was funny.
Good.
Yeah. Lucy clearly knows how to use technology, just FYI.
Yeah. She just doesn't understand cell phones for no reason.
But she understands that you can like be sitting in your chair and still be ordering another chair from a store like thousands of miles away.
Yeah, and she knows you could have two monitors so that you can have your work on one monitor and you can have your Amazon chair shopping on the other monitor, and you can move a mouse between them.
Yeah.
So you can browse Bill Hastings' Zone website on one monitor.
Oh man, yeah. So we get I think a really great scene at the Briggs family home. Bobby, Hawk, and Truman visit there. They ask about Cooper and Briggs, and then there's this whole... I feel like we got sort of a smaller version of a very classic Major Briggs sort of oratory moment, right?
As recalled,
his widow is sort of recalling his final instructions about Cooper and his prediction of what's going to happen, and her insistence to Bobby that he always knew he would sort of find the life he was meant to have.
Yeah, it landed so well. It was so good.
Yeah.
And it made me really glad that we talked about those scenes last week in our catch-up episode, because it ended up putting that stuff so fresh in my mind that when she went into it, I was totally ready.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
That scene was one of my favorite scenes in season 3 of Twin Peaks, maybe, at least as far, especially just... I wasn't, I've been enjoying all of the new crazy things that have been in this season, but as far as just like core classic Twin Peaks moments, this was fantastic. That whole speech was good. Also, one of many secret compartments containing a wrapped piece of paper with a clue in it. We got all of Twin Peaks classics were here.
Yep.
Bobby tearing up, everything you could ever want was in this scene, but it all landed and was all perfect. Mm-hmm. Like as opposed to the Andy and Lucy scene, which was classic Twin Peaks conceptually, but in execution did not hold a candle to anything of its ilk from the old show. This scene
Oh, it
was
was
just
totally
like
up there, yeah.
elevated, great version of
Absolutely.
that style of moment that
Absolutely.
you love from Twin Peaks.
I mean, and it landed it right up until the end because there's this sort of, Mrs. Briggs, it just has she's holding the room completely wrapped, right? I mean, she has these people enraptured, and everyone is sort of caught up in this incredible grandeur and the sort of poignancy and power of what is being said and also what is being described. And then what causes you to actually realize that you also, the audience member, are just as caught up in it as the actors on screen is when she says, now how about that coffee? And everyone's sort of like
yes.
I was like, oh, great. They all refused coffee a moment ago, and
Yeah.
now it's like, oh my God. And she breaks the ice in this pitch perfect way, and the room just like deflates just the right amount.
Yep.
And it was perfect.
And
I just
also
thought it was totally
also
perfect.
everyone getting excited to close that out with coffee is the most Twin Peaks
Yeah,
way
exactly.
to end
That
it.
was also the best way to end
When
it.
she turned around and was talking about the thing that Major Briggs left behind, I totally thought that she was just going to pull out like a 4-inch thick dossier called The Secret History of Twin Peaks and hand it over to those guys. But then I was
impossible because Preston, right?
But why does she have it? We don't know what time that actually happens.
Yeah,
that
I
could have
suppose
happened
that's
after
true.
this. This could have been just handed to those guys to make its
Yeah.
way into the hands of Agent Preston.
Yeah, I guess that's
But
true.
instead, way better, an old person chair popped
Yeah.
up in a secret compartment with a pill containing a note.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene was so good, and that actress just destroyed it. It's probably her only scene in the new Twin Peaks. That's my guess.
Yeah.
But what a good,
she killed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great. And then I also actually think that Bobby
This
did
episode
great with everything he was given this episode.
Bobby's performance just great in all. He was in, I guess, probably 3 big scenes across the episode, all really good. When talking to Dana about it, the thing that we both sort of determined was it's a performance that's actually made me appreciate teenage Bobby more.
Oh, interesting.
Seeing Bobby as an adult and seeing the way that he is actually emotionally affected by all these things, and his actual relationship with his parents, and the way that he sort of recalls all the things that he did with his dad, and the way that he's so emotional about all these things. It made me go back and think about a lot of Bobby's moments in the first couple seasons, and it cements for me, like, it always was ambiguous to me as to whether or not it's Dana Ashbrook is the actor.
Yep.
If the Bobby Briggs stuff was him being a bad actor or him being a kid who was playing it cool but maybe wasn't as cool as he was playing it, and I feel like
Right.
Bobby as an adult totally cements it as the latter, as like this is
Yeah.
actually an emotional kid who was wearing the sort of mask of cool teen. And I mean, whether or not that was actually partly bad acting at the time, like, it totally feels now like you're seeing Bobby having spent years sort of reforming his life and going to be, a member of the Twin Peaks Sheriff's Department that he is now, having all of these things from his past, like not only the death of Laura Palmer, who was like his high school girlfriend, with whom he was involved in all sorts of stuff that he probably regrets as an adult, but also the death of his father that was temporally connected to that, but he probably didn't see those events as like literally a part of a chain in his childhood. And now he's looking back at all of that, going like, thinking back at who he was as Bobby Briggs and who he was as a son and as a teenager and as just sort of a member of this town and as a person. I feel like he's actually managing to convey all of that stuff just through, like, I don't know. I was so into like Bobby Briggs' story this episode. Fucking twist ending.
I totally agree. And I think that stuff kind of got tied together. So what the thing you describe as, I think you're 100% spot on about, I mean, whether or not it was 100% present in Ashbrook's performance in the original run of Twin Peaks, or whether or not it is a combination of that plus our kind of retroactive assignment from this season, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, it's all there. But regardless, I think this episode shows, I think, very honestly and very accurately the adult kind of evolution of that as all of that stuff that was going on in his head and his psyche as a teen, embroiled in all of this just impossibly complex emotionality and everything else. Now he's the adult who's grown through that, and sort of internalized it into someone who's basically centered and level and is sort of using that to play off of all these experiences in a totally like well-adjusted way. Like I love all the times he's given several instances this episode of basically being like, I know what you guys are trying to do. Like I know this. My dad showed me this thing.
Right.
Like, oh, I know what we're doing. Let's head outside. He does that a couple times this episode, and it really feels to me like it's almost Bobby. He sort of gets to show that he's taken all these experiences and is now able to access them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's been a great combination of sort of confidence in his ability to do that and then surprise where he's hit by a memory that he clearly hasn't reassessed since he was a kid. Like, what was the name of the location that Briggs says they should go?
Jack Rabbit's Palace.
Yeah, when Jack Rabbit's Palace shows up and he just goes, like... And he, like, you could see the, like, respect for his dad showing up and him being like, maybe I never actually thought about some of the stuff that my dad actually did and, like, what my dad was as a person.
Does, right?
Right, and he didn't have a chance to really know to, like, grow up with his dad because his dad died literally right after Twin Peaks. Like, Bobby was maybe just, like, towards the end of being in high school when his dad died.
Yeah.
And this sort of, like... thinking back to all those things and now going, oh, wow, my dad was maybe an adult. Was it like, it's been cool seeing those tiny little moments hit him, along with, like you said, him just being able to actually, like the sort of surface level stuff versus the deeper stuff. I feel like both came out at the same time. I don't know. It's really good. Yeah. Who knew that Bobby Briggs would be an awesome character?
Well, again,
again,
right? I mean, I guess in this case, the scale is tipped by Major Briggs being such an important character to the plot. But, nonetheless, as we were saying with Albert, like, you don't know which characters from the original run are going to end up with a huge, important role. And as with Albert, I mean, I think even more so here because Albert obviously was already a fully grown adult and accomplished actor at the time the original Twin Peaks ran. But, Dana Ashbrook got handed a really consequential role in this new season and is just totally knocking it out of the park. Yeah. And it's amazing. It's just great.
I mean, also, it's only turned out to be a consequential role because of this episode, I feel like, because he's only really
That's true. You're right.
He only had
You're
one
right.
other beat, which was him
true.
seeing Laura's picture and crying. But now it feels like, oh, Bobby is essential to season 3 after this episode.
Yeah.
Also,
you're right.
Amazingly, Don Davis, the actor who played Major Briggs, he feels like his presence is essential to this season.
Absolutely, yeah.
Major Briggs had such a small role, really, all things considered, in Twin Peaks.
Tons of screen time.
But it was so potent, and it felt like both of the actors who, both Bobby Briggs and his mom, I can't remember her character's name, but both of their abilities to sort of channel either the sort of cadence or emotion or what feels like maybe even just their memories of acting with Don Davis in their remembering Major Briggs felt so like just this episode Major Briggs was just was all over it, including Bill Hastings drawing and circling the picture of him, but just it makes you
It's Betty Briggs.
Okay. It makes you miss Major Briggs and makes you miss Don Davis, but it also he feels so honored by sort of his tone and his character inspiring all of the actions in this show. Like it was so successful.
No, I totally agree. And I think also, so Charlotte Stewart, who played Betty Briggs, we sort of alluded to this, but it's worth mentioning that she also did an absolutely fantastic job in this episode. And I think very much in line with what you just described. I mean, she was, again, unlike Dana Ashbrook, she was a full-grown adult at the time the original Twin Peaks was shot. And so she was playing alongside Don Davis as, both just grown adult actors. And there's it's impossible for that sort of history and that knowledge not to seep into what we're seeing here. And all these people just did a great job.
Yeah,
like dealing with that legacy.
Knowing what the plot of this season is, I feel like everyone who follows Twin Peaks must have sort of suspected that Major Briggs would have to show up in some form in a third season of Twin Peaks because of the interactions he had with Cooper in season 2.
Yeah.
And I was really sad that Don Davis wasn't going to be around for this season of Twin Peaks, but given that he wasn't, I feel like the way that they've handled his character and his sort of presence in the story, both from a plot and sort of emotional and character level, is the absolute best you could have hoped for without the actor being alive.
100% agree. Yeah. I don't know how you could possibly improve on it.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to, I guess, some of the really chunky plot stuff that's revealed. They open this wacky device that is opened by
throwing it
on the
until it
ground.
hums and makes a little click, and then he threw it a second time.
Yeah.
Did the hum sound like the same hum that was inside of the Great Northern to you?
It kind of sounded like it. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same. It felt sort of higher pitched to me, but
it was
I
just
could be wrong.
the other time that there was a prolonged hum. But also, how many times have there been a prolonged hum or drone in Twin Peaks? Answer: always.
Yeah, but that's a little bit different because this is explicitly in the world and characters remark on it. I think we're probably supposed
That's true.
to
There are
associate
two
them.
diegetic hums.
Yeah,
this
because
episode.
they're both in this episode, and the other one with Ben Horne and Beverly. That's all that happens in that. I mean, they have a moment together, but the scene basically exists, I think, so that we can hear that hum again.
Yeah.
So it's probably intentional. Anyway, inside of the tiny little scroll in this capsule are two pieces of paper, one of which says 253 yards east of Jack Rabbit's palace, 253, 10-1, and 10-2, October 1st and October 2nd, before leaving Jack Rabbit's. They say it says before leaving Jack Rabbit's palace. I think it's actually written before leaving Jack Rabbit's place the second time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Put some soil from that area in your pocket, and then there's a diagram of what looks to be two mountains, a sun over, two peaks.
Yeah.
One over, a sun over one, and then a crescent moon over what I and some people interpreted as that
sort of
silhouette creature that Bad Coop had
on the card.
On his card, that some people I'm less certain of this, but some people have drawn a comparison between that and the experiment or the experimental model
that barfed out Bob.
Yeah.
Well, because in that scene when it's floating through space last week, I think it was last week. It must. Oh, yes, it was last week. Was it in episode 8 that happened? Yes. Its face is basically a black orb with two horns.
Right. The horns just look like a different silhouette to me.
Yeah.
But that might just be an artifact of just the way it's scrawled on the paper. I can't really tell.
I found that image to be the most outrageous lore image of all time.
I know, right?
Because if it is the experimental model or whatever that being is that barfed out Bob, and the thing that you say is a sun is actually a golden orb, then what that actually is the two peaks of Twin Peaks are like the Black Lodge and White Lodge spirits of that Laura Palmer orb face and that Bob barfing thing from the nuclear explosion.
Right.
Which is the most outrageous retconning of the meaning of Twin Peaks being these two things.
The only reason I thought it was the sun is because there's what looks like kind of a crescent moon on the other side, but
but it could also nothing ever means one thing in this show.
It's true. Yeah.
And nothing necessarily ever means anything.
That's also
in
true.
in a specific way, at least.
Yeah. So we talked about Bobby's reaction to Jack Rabbit's palace, but there's also another piece of paper with a bunch of codes, each one consisting of a letter and 3 numbers, and then also the word Cooper twice.
Isn't that the printout that Major Briggs shows Cooper from?
Yeah, from what they thought was space, right? But
and then he says, actually, it's from the woods.
Yeah,
like he said,
exactly.
we were looking down instead of up or whatever.
And then Hawk very, very notably, his summation of that is 2 Coopers.
Yeah.
Which is another sort of funny, not necessarily retcon, but like an amazing, hilarious way to tie in this element from the original run into the fact that there are now literally two Coopers running around.
Well, Hawk also, Hawk has had that notion in his mind because a couple episodes ago, he and Sheriff Truman found those pages from Annie's journal and introduced to themselves the idea of there being a bad Cooper and a good Cooper.
Right,
so
that's true,
for Hawk, that is like, at least he didn't say it out of nowhere because he literally read a piece of paper that said the good Cooper and the bad Cooper or whatever and went, what?
Yeah.
Although he definitely took that on faith in an outrageous way 2 episodes ago. That piece of paper also, I think, shows up in The Secret History of Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So that's all that happens plot-wise with the sheriff's department.
Yeah, it's set up for some big-ass plot event to happen soon because where they're going is up into the woods of Twin Peaks, also to a weird, mysterious location with a cryptic name at a certain time. The time it's the same time. I think we've seen that time.
We've seen 253 a lot.
Yeah, and also it's, as Bobby said, Jack Rabbit's palace is right, like, within very short walking distance of the government facility up in the hills that Major Briggs used to work in, because Bobby said that, like, it was right by my dad's work.
Yep.
So whatever's up there is going to be a big deal.
Yep, for sure.
Maybe it will also be found by Jerry Horne.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we haven't talked about the horns. So, yeah, let's talk about Jerry Horne, because I don't think there's a lot to say.
No, there's not. That scene was really, to me, I wasn't into it up until the end of it. Like, when his shoe started talking to him and he started talking back to his shoe and doing that weird, like...
Well, when he talks to it, that's pretty early in the scene, but then he spends quite a while after that touching, like, sort of gingerly touching his shoe and then pulling back until at the very end.
Ending in the most amazing little physical gag.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
And then just like a comedic cut to black and a hold on black for a minute.
Yeah. Yep.
That was very good, but up until then, I don't know. That said, Jerry's shoe having a subtitle and sounding like the arm was very strange.
Yeah, it says, "I'm not your foot."
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Who knows or cares? Find out later. But that the fact that there's a weird subtitled creature.
Did it sound like the arm to you? It sounded almost more babyish to me, slightly.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true. It just had one of those sort of season 3 Lodge voices more than old Twin Peaks thing. But yeah, who knows where that came from and what it meant. But the fact that he was having any sort of weird subtitled experience is what made me think that for some reason he was going to stumble into the sheriff's department.
After this season is concluded, I assume, just because this is what happens on the internet, people are probably going to do supercuts of specific minor characters from this season. I mean, if you could just watch all of the Jerry Horne scenes back to back at the end of the season, it probably would only last a few minutes total.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I mean, I kind of want to go back and do that for a lot of these minor characters, just to see if there's any kind of like
what the continuity
through line
is,
or progression or anything. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to know now when we just get these tiny isolated bursts of a couple minutes each spread over many episodes.
Yep. You want to talk about Ben and Beverly?
Yeah. So we're introduced to that scene with an establishing shot of the mountains. We get classic Twin Peaks
That was like
music.
the most classic establishing shot set up.
The Great Northern. Yeah, it was really, really classic.
Yep. And I mean, them chasing the hum, it's weird that it's a second instance of that, but like the first time, it also felt like an old Twin Peaks scene to me of just two characters discovering something peculiar, being kind of sly and playful about it.
Yeah.
And then it getting a little bit awkward at the end.
Right. I mean, I guess the point of that part was sort of to establish that Ben Horne has mellowed with age, I guess.
When she said, you're a good man, Ben Horne, I was like hoping against hope that it would end with him saying, no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I wanted him to say it so bad, but he didn't, and then it cut.
Yeah.
Because he's not, and he knows that he's not. And he kind of played it like he was dubious for saying that line, but he also let himself take the compliment, and I didn't appreciate it. Mm-hmm. The lamp in the corner, when it first showed up in the previous scene with Ben Horne and Beverly, people on the internet were obsessed with or excited by the shape of the silhouette kind of looking like the owl cave / ring image. And it looked, I wasn't 100% on board with that sort of read because I felt like it wasn't super explicit. This episode, it felt super explicit to me.
Really? Man,
the camera just pushed in on that sort of box-shaped lamp, and it was right in the corner. So the shadow it cast on the wall was literally just the two arches of the sort of the wings of the owl.
Wow.
Or the two peaks of Twin Peaks. Who knows, again, that could totally be an accident, or it could just be David Lynch really does like that zigzaggy shape as a compositional element.
Yeah.
Who can say? I wonder, it felt like they had honed in on the hum way more explicitly this episode, to the point that I had expected them to find it.
Yeah.
I wonder if it literally is going to be another one of those little tubes hidden in that room. I don't know why it would be humming.
Maybe, I don't know, yeah.
I was hoping that my prediction that it was in like Audrey's secret wall hole was going to totally be revealed, that they would pull that open and there's just like one of those things, but there's nothing.
I thought the previous time they did this,
it seemed
when
like
they
it
moved
chased them around the room.
Yeah, I
but this time,
thought it chased them away from them. I thought is what it was doing.
But this time they were like really hovering around that lamp, which is where the camera sort of focused in at the end of the previous scene, and they were like, I think it's here, but that was the end of that scene, wasn't it? It just kind of
that's it. That's all we saw, and then the third Horne scene was Johnny Horne. Sort of running around
the Horne house as the camera sort of pans down and then smashing into the
things.
wall.
He hits his head against I believe a picture, like a hung picture frame.
Yeah, I guess that must be what happened, because or he hit his head in the wall, then smashed into the picture on the way down. But there's definitely a hole in the wall, smashed picture frame and glass, and his mom off screen just worriedly freaking out about him. Yeah. And that's all that we see.
That's all we see. Yeah, I mean, So
we've seen the whole Horne family now, except Audrey.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Which I'm sure is really annoying people. If you're a person who is frustrated and feel like you're deliberately being played by Frost and Lynch, who are withholding from you the things that you want, you are livid at this point after seeing Cooper see an American flag, see a character dressed as Audrey Horne walk by, and then see the two other members of the Horne family.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to be really mad when Billy Zane shows up as Wheeler and starts hanging out with the Horns, and you still don't have Audrey.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much the episode. We close out on the roadhouse. We get a scene.
Oh,
What, if anything, did you take from that conversation in the booth? Anything?
I don't know. It was two new characters having a conversation about zebras and penguins, right? Was that right?
Yeah. It seemed like those were like nicknames they were using for people.
Interestingly, both animals made entirely of black and white stripes and shapes. But,
First Lady's talking about losing her job, getting a new job, doing the same thing.
Yeah, has a weird rash.
Yeah.
It felt like it was... I don't know, just we're being introduced to two more sort of down and out teens who are under the heel of the badness of Twin Peaks, but we don't have any context with which to read a lot more into it. Are they connected to any of we don't know which sort of social scenes or nefarious criminal wings of Twin Peaks these characters are connected to, if any, or if it's an entirely new thread. It's so hard to know because of the way that the show just drops new threads and doesn't give you any context for them, and then you have to just trust that you're going to be carried till way later when maybe something has made sense of it.
I mean, this reminded me that we got, a bit of... It's been a while since we've caught up with the other sort of strung out pair of teens who, I guess we last saw driving away in their convertible.
Yep.
But we get these little drops of characters like this, and then still not clear what the sort of...
As far as trying to predict the overall structure of the show, which I'm not trying to do in the active way, but I always sort of have the passive inquiry in my mind. You said earlier this episode, it feels like we have to have some sort of resolution or things coming to a head soon, and I keep pushing against that in my mind of okay, we're just not going to get Cooper back until the end. We're not going to land in Twin Peaks and proper till the end, except that there are so many threads in Twin Peaks that feel like the way that this show sort of plants something, then sort of swings it on a huge pendulum until it comes crashing back later. There's so many of those Twin Peaks arcs that are mid-swing that there have to be if that stuff doesn't show, if that stuff just gets if those threads get cut by the end because the Cooper storyline takes so long, that just doesn't seem like it's actually the modus operandi of season 3 of Twin Peaks. That's the thing that makes me think that some big piece of the story is going to slam back into Twin Peaks earlier than it seems like it is because of the pace that we've taken the Cooper stuff so far. So even if it ends up that it's still Dougie and Bad Coop and Gordon and Albert and all those other characters in Twin Peaks, or who knows what, it still may not be Cooper chugging down coffee and drinking cherry pie and talking into a tape recorder, but it seems like things are going to come to a head earlier than the very end, at least as far as all of this stuff, because it can't be there for no purpose.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think that makes sense.
It seems like
wait and see, though.
There is, at this point, actually nothing inside of this season for no purpose, I think, even though it felt super shaggy dog in the first like 5 episodes of the season.
And yeah, when shaggy elements keep getting introduced.
Yeah.
But no, I think that makes sense.
It just, the pieces keep getting picked up.
On that, I think this episode is coming to a head.
Yep.
Send us your email to questions at Twin Peaks. No, I'm sorry. Send us your questions to Idle Thumbs. Oh my God.
Wow.
Tired.
If you have questions, send them to us at twinpeaks@idlethumbs.net.
That's true. Our website is twinpeaksrewatch.com, and from there you can find just all the different places we are on the internet. If you like this show, tell a friend. Consider rating us on iTunes. We have a lot of viewers on YouTube now, so thanks for watching if that's where you're watching us. And we didn't get any at the time we recorded this email. We didn't yet have any. At the time we recorded this episode, we did not yet have any email about this latest episode. But do send in your email about the season, about the next episode after it airs. Send that into twinpeaks@idlethumbs.net. And if we get any in time, we will read it on the next episode. Yep. And yeah, thanks for following along with us. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week for part 10. For Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Bye.